Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 216 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Pasquale Veri.
And I am Claudio Spera. Welcome to the show, everyone. Kiss have often been described as explosive and influential. So they are definitely explosive, but question is, are they influential? On this panel, we're going to explore how Kiss reshaped the music industry and inspired generations of bands that followed, from stage shows and branding to sonic style and fan culture. So tonight, we're going to go beyond the makeup and into the ripple effect of rock's most theatrical icons.
And speaking of explosive and influential, to help us tackle this topic, we are joined by Patrick de Montigny and Rala Brown Hinckley. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us. Always fun.
Yeah. Hey, Rala, before we start, we were talking off air about Vegas, and you said you're not going to be going, but you're doing something else instead. Can you tell us about it?
I am going on the Kiss Cruisers reunion cruise at the end of the year, from October 27th through November 1. That's something that Andy put together about a year and a half ago, and so we're all kind of super excited about it.
Wow, that's nice. So what are you guys doing?
We are going to Half Moon Cay. If you guys remember, that was the first on the first cruise. Yep, and this is a carnival. This is a carnival cruise as well. We're going to the new Celebration Key, which is Carnival's new island experience.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to go to Grand Turks.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
And then we'll have a day at sea. So, yeah. So it's like a 5-day thing. Yeah. And it cruises out of Miami. So
nice. Hey, if I know Andy, he's going to make this really, really special and Kiss related. It's going to be awesome.
We have T-shirts and.
Of course.
So, and
that's awesome.
I'm on some of the Carnival Facebook pages, and a lot of people are asking about, oh, what am I going to do for Halloween? What am I going to do for Halloween? And I let them know. I'm like, well, just so you know, there's going to be a lot of Kiss reunion cruisers on board, and you might see some Kiss costumes. And they're like, oh, how cool is that going to be? So, yeah, so they were all kind of excited about that.
Oh yeah, they won't know what's coming. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, they won't be. Awesome. They won't be.
It might become the new Kiss cruise. That's you know.
Yeah.
You know that's funny because Las Vegas is like the landlocked Kiss cruise.
Yeah.
And you guys are going on a fan Kiss cruise in a sense.
Right.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And how about you, Patrick? Anything new?
Getting ready for my vacation tomorrow night. So
nice.
Awesome.
Very nice.
It's a week off. But they're quite late this year, but worth the wait. And hopefully, I think the weather in the next few days are going to be good. So I'm going to be, just relaxing. And I like the fact that I don't have anything planned. So every day could be something like some sort of a surprise. So
that's great. And the weather is going to help. You know, we've been having great weather, man.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful summer.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be
good stuff. Love it.
Unwind.
Good. And those 2 weeks or during your vacation, I suggest that you continue working on your Kiss room because I'm dying to see it, man. I can't wait.
Yeah. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's funny you mentioned that because I'm doing a bit of I'm cleaning stuff and sorting things out. So it's coming this fall for sure.
Nice. Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So before we get into the topic at hand, like we do in a lot of our discussion panels, we're going to start with a little warm-up question. And this question is actually related to our topic. So like Claudio said, listen, it's obvious that Kiss has left a massive mark on the music world. So my question to you is, how did Kiss leave a mark on you? How has Kiss influenced and shaped your tastes in music and how you listen to music? And we'll start with Rala.
Well, as you all know, I was not allowed to listen to Kiss. So it was more of a rebellious thing with me, I think. And I remember the first time I heard them, I'm like, who is this? What kind of music is this? Especially when you're used to listening to Captain and Tennille and the Bee Gees and, a lot of the really, really soft, mellow music. I think the hardest my parents ever listened to was maybe CCR.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and my dad was a big saxophone guy, so he loved to listen to jazz and blues music. So I think for me, Kiss incorporated a lot of that. I mean, they went the bluesy, jazzy sound in some of their music, and the guitar. The guitar is what hooked me. Um, and then when you see the costumes and the makeup, you're like, okay, what is this about? I know I looked at photos for a long time before I actually ever saw them on TV. And the first time I saw them, I remember I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm a fan for life. I mean, it's just the whole experience that you get, and it's hard to explain.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question, Rola. We all know that you're in love with Ace. So did you fall in love right away with Ace, or it was just the Kiss, entire band or something?
Yeah, Ace, I did, and the other character, Gene, and I think because Gene's voice was so gruff and deep, and he breathed fire and spewing blood and all that stuff. As a kid, that was pretty awesome.
That's right.
But yeah, the Ace. I don't know. There was just something about him. I don't know what. It may be the guitar. I've always loved the strong guitarist, and that guitar always gets me in any kind of music. Always.
Okay, Patrick, how about you?
Yeah, I always say that my passion for Kiss has made me discover other bands. And what I mean by that is when I first, I started being a Kiss fan at the age of 8 officially. So sometimes I would get newspapers or magazines that had this big of an article on Kiss. Now I'd see other bands. Like I'll always remember I bought this local music newspaper with a small blurb on Kiss, but I signed up for Iron Maiden, number of the Beast. So I was like, oh, I got to listen to this. And then it went on, bought a magazine. Oh, Motley Crue, what's this? And that type of thing. So to me, Kiss, my passion for Kiss has made me appreciate music more in a way. It made me hungry for more music, more bands. As far as Kiss itself, well, I'm a little bit like Rolla. The first, the image was very strong and everything. And when I heard the music the first time, it was like, oh, okay, I like this as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, like Rolla, Ace was my instant favorite. He was my, for some reason, I liked his makeup, the persona and everything, and what he, and of course, as Kiss grew, he took more space and had more songs. And so I was like, I became like a fan. But at first, I'm a Kiss fan, the Four Guys. And I think my passion for Kiss has made me appreciate all types of music because again, Kiss varied its music style. So that's what has brought it. Kiss made me hungry for music, for artists.
Okay, good. Claudio.
Look, back in '79, I remember when I was a kid, I was 10, 11 years old or something like that. So, and I remember at home, my mom, she used to listen to a lot of music on the radio. Any kinds of music, some pop, some rock, and my father being, a strong Sicilian, with deep roots, he was listening to opera, that kind of, dark stuff, Italian thing. So for him, rock was like an insult, it was like, what is this? So I think that that whole situation drove me to find something as Rolla was describing, kind of rebellion. I needed to find, my type of music, my genre of music. And I said this many times. I was hooked when I saw the video from, I Was Made for Loving You and Sure Know Something. And then I was hooked for life. But it was strange because Kiss was the only thing that I was listening to. There was nothing else for me. I remember there was a big rivalry with Queen at that time in South America. It was either a Queen fan or a Kiss fan. I went into Kiss, big time. But I had some friends who were saying to me, come on, guys. So you have to listen to something else, man. There's Iron Maiden, there's Judas Priest, and blah, blah, blah. And to me it was, no, loyalty first. I go with Kiss, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So just to make a long story short, to me, basically it defined Kiss defined the genre of music that stuck with me for life. So that's what got me into rock and roll, hard rock. And then, of course, I started to expand and listening to other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But my first exposure to this type of music was Kiss. And I have to say that even the visual had a big impact on me. I think the music was really, really deep. I think I remember listening to Dynasty and then Unmasked, and then going back in the catalog. I couldn't stop listening to those guys, and dreaming, looking at the cover and,
Mm-hmm.
Fantasy, with Gene and, the characters and all of that. But the music stuck for me forever.
This question really made me think about it, because for me, it brings up the question of nature versus nurture. So the love for this type of music, is this something that you're born with, or something that you learned, or a little bit of both? And I have to admit, I think for me, this is something that I learned, because my first love wasn't music. It was always movies, specifically horror movies, sci-fi movies. And that's how I got into Kiss. I told the story 1,000 times, right? I heard people in the laneway talk about the demon, the Star Child. They told me about Kiss. So I learned about the band through my eyes, through the visuals, not through the music. And then when I heard the music, it was from Destroyer, poppy, easily accessible stuff. Their earlier stuff, I didn't like. I grew to like it. When they came out with Revenge, I'm sorry, Patrick, I know you loved it, but when it first came out, I didn't like it. It's like, what is this? I grew to like it. Carnival Souls, I didn't like it. Even Monster, after Sonic Boom, which I found was very close to the classic 70s Kiss, very accessible. They came out with Monster. It was rough. It was tough. I didn't like it. I grew to like it. For me, Kiss music was something that I grew to love. And like you, Claudio, when I got into the band, I got into the band 100%. I listened to nothing else. A friend of mine introduced me to Van Halen. I got into them. And my cousin introduced me to April Wine. I got into them. That was it. So for the entire 70s, it was Kiss and only Kiss. When I checked out, that's when the nature came in. What am I really drawn to? And that was easily accessible music. Bon Jovi, New Order, Pet Shop Boys. I'm sorry, but I loved that dance music. Really, really poppy and stuff that makes you move. The hard stuff in the 80s, not at all. And then when I got back into Kiss, and that's when I really started to experience different types of music. And that's because when I got back into the band, I had learned to love that music. And then getting back into Kiss, I didn't get back just into Kiss, but into music. And whether it was learned or whether it was a part of who I am or who I was, I gravitated towards music that was like Kiss. So everything I listened to sounded like the band. And even, I never liked classical music. But when they came out on the Kiss My Ass album, the classical version of Black Diamond, I got into classical music because of that. And now when they have tribute artists doing Kiss in a country version, it got me into country. Bluegrass, I got into bluegrass. It's weird, but now I'm expanding my horizons because of Kiss. So their music today, after all of these years, is definitely a part of my DNA.
Absolutely awesome, man. This is beautiful warm-up question. We could be talking about this, for the whole show. This is great. So, but we have to get things going. So before we start, let me explain how this panel is going to work. So each question is going to be centered on a specific aspect of Kiss's influence. So they are the following: stage theatrics, branding and merchandising, makeup and persona, fandom, and genre fusion and accessibility. So for each of the above influences, we're going to ask you to name bands that you feel reflect those particular influences. So let's start with the first question. Pask. So you want us to get it started?
Okay. So, as you know, Kiss is known for their live shows. So, what bands have clearly taken inspiration from Kiss's stage presence, and how have they evolved or amplified that spectacle? Patrick, what do you think?
I think the first one that comes to mind when that question is being asked is early Motley Crue. I'm talking first and second album, Shout at the Devil, because you can't help but see Kiss references, although they probably deny it, the band itself. But Mick Mars spitting blood in the live wire video, the theatrics and the dangerous element of early Kiss, at least, is there in the Motley Crue stage show. Now, as time progressed, Motley Crue kind of got away from that. They became more like a party band, and they evolved, and then they tried other things. I mean, I salute them for doing that. But definitely, I think early Motley Crue reminds me of early Kiss in the 70s when, there was, especially during the Hotter Than Hell period and that kind of thing. You go, wow, what is this? And Motley Crue, well, at least during the Shout at the Devil era, was this new bad boy of rock and roll. And I see similarities right there. The stage show, same thing. You see the candles, chandelier, and there's all kinds of Kiss things there. So I'm not saying Kiss did it first, but you can tell that they were influenced. Yeah. So lots of similarities for sure. Maybe not musically, but visually, yes.
Okay, so my question to you is, if Kiss didn't do it first, was the influence from Kiss or from whoever did it first?
Could be a little bit of both. I think Kiss, they were influenced by Alice Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe others, Slade and that kind of thing. But I would say probably that Nikki Sixx, in my opinion, has been more influenced than Kiss than he cares to admit. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. There seems to be this little rivalry between the two bands. And he probably listened to some Alice Cooper as well, and probably the other stuff that influenced Kiss. But I see nothing but Kiss in the early Motley Crue.
Right. Okay. Rella, what do you think?
He took the words out of my mouth. The only thing that I would add to that is, I think they have evolved a little bit more. I mean, with the drum solo, the upside down, strapping into the drum set, and to me that is, I'd never seen anything like that before, and yeah, I'm totally with Patrick.
Okay, Claudio.
Well, I think that one of the beauties of this episode, that's the way it's set up to talk about different categories. I would like to say that to me that's kind of a toolkit, so different kinds of things that a band has to have to influence other bands. And in the case of Kiss, it's undeniable that the over-the-top spectacle with the pyro, with the blood spitting, the risers, the theatrical personas, basically created something, let's say, that never existed before. Of course, there was, Alice Cooper, as Pat was saying, but I think that that Kiss kind of went a little bit over the top on that. I agree with both, Rolla and Pat. I see a lot of stuff on Motley Crue coming from Kiss, but if we come maybe to something more contemporary, I have to say that talking about stage presence, which is the question, I think Slipknot. It's a hell of a band where you can see that they created these mysterious, masked identities for each member. Very much in the spirit of Kiss's characters. There's other bands also talking about spectacle and stage. Rammstein, Rammstein, they put a lot of emphasis on pyro and stage visuals. They kind of cultivated an aesthetic and mystique, around the bands. Everybody's saying, oh, even if you don't like the music, you have to go and see these guys live. So that's something that I think comes from Kiss. So that's why at the beginning, we all know the story. They were not selling albums at all, but, their shows were packed. So this is pretty much, I think, one of the biggest influence that's had on other bands too.
Funny, Claudio, you took the words directly out of my mouth. Two of the bands that you mentioned, I was going to talk about as well.
Okay.
But when it comes to these discussion panels, I like to sort of, if you notice a pattern in my answers on these discussion panels, I like to have an overall arching theme to bring everything together for these questions to make sense to me. So for this particular topic, I see it as, and you mentioned it in the question, in the opener, was Kiss actually influential? And I can't help but think about a quote from Gene, and I'm paraphrasing. He says, "We're not pioneers. We took what's already there and took it a step further, 10 steps further." And that's what Kiss has always done. They've never done anything new. It's always been around. They just took it to an extreme. Now, having done that, have they influenced people? Undeniably, of course they have. But the way I see it, it's hard to say that this band or that band was directly influenced by Kiss. Maybe they were influenced by the idea of a show that's a total spectacle, a total immersive experience, like a Kiss show. So I see it more like a soup. And in that soup, you have Alice Cooper, you have Kiss, you mentioned Slipknot and Rammstein. I want to mention Gwar as well, right? With the fantasy masks and all that stuff. It's crazy. Were they directly influenced by Kiss? I don't know, but they're part of that soup. And when you say I want chicken soup, there's a sort of recipe that goes with that, and a certain expectation for the taste that you're going to get from that soup. So when you say I want a show with spectacle, or I'm going to create a band with spectacle, you follow that recipe.
Yeah.
Does that mean that I'm influenced by Kiss, or if I'm actually following a recipe? So I don't know. That's, for me, that's what I'm grappling with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that's a very thin, kind of difference. How it depends how you define influence, right? At that point, because it's you take something from the past and you try to replicate it. I don't think that's the case, but it could be an inspiration, as you said before, and that's an influence too. So let's go into the second category, which is branding. So we all agree that Kiss turned band branding into a business empire. So which bands followed in their footsteps by building a brand around their identity, and how did that influence their popularity and longevity? So Pasc, on you.
Okay, another interesting question, because I think in this case, if I'm not mistaken, they are pioneers in merchandising. I don't think any other band has started this. Wasn't it Kiss that started the idea of selling T-shirts at concerts, and then everybody else followed? So everybody else saw the potential to make money because of Kiss, and then took it to an extreme. But yeah, I could definitely say Kiss was a definite influence in this case, and in terms of creating a brand from the band. And again, I don't know if it's direct influences, or the idea that now you have a recipe for marketing a band. And Kiss is part, or actually a very big part of that recipe that people follow. Again, they have that influence. Iron Maiden, I think, is a good example of that, right? The Eddie mascot. It's a part of the band. It's part of the merchandise and the cover art. As a matter of fact, funny thing, it took me a long time to get into Iron Maiden, and I kept seeing their covers. I loved the artwork. And like getting into Kiss, it was visual. I had to listen to the albums because I loved the artwork so much. I bought an album before even listening to the stuff, and I just fell in love with it. And I bought the majority of their catalog based on cover art. That's powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
And they know this. that
Yeah.
people listen with their eyes as well as their ears.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Part of the recipe, Metallica, for example. How?
Mhm.
Well, Metallica didn't have it's not in terms of the visuals like Kiss, but how many of us have seen how Kiss Online deals with sales and prices and always go back to Metallica saying they should do it that way. They have their own printing company. Their vinyl box sets are affordable. And my God, what you get in those box sets for the price, Kiss would charge 10 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good business model in terms of from Metallica, taking what Kiss does and go, you know what? Let's make it affordable for the everyday person. Smart. Why can't Kiss do that?
That's right. So okay, well that's that's something interesting. So Metallica and Iron Maiden. I just wanted to add something to what you said about Iron Maiden, and I remember watching one interview with Steve Harris, and he said that he took advice from Gene to actually put the name of the band on the top portion of the cover, so that when you go to the record store and you flip, so you can see the name of the band right away. So this is something really, really interesting.
Nice.
Rola, so what about you? So what do you think about branding? Was Kiss influential?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They started it all. I think a lot of the other bands at first were like, "Whoa, what's going on here? What are these guys crazy? What are they doing?" And when I think the other bands, when they realized that they could make just as much money doing the same thing, then they started selling posters and t-shirts and, probably not to the extent that Kiss has done, but absolutely they influenced that whole market. I mean, Gene is a marketing king, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And he put a Kiss label on anything. Of course, we all know he's done that. So, but yeah, absolutely, they have influenced. But again, I don't think, and even in movies, if you think about it that way, Kiss has had short little scenes in movies and actually even done movies, and a lot of other bands have followed suit with that. I think Prince had a movie, and I know some other bands have had short little scripts or even having their music in movies like Aerosmith.
Yeah.
So I think that is another outlet for them as well. But yeah, they influenced all of that for sure.
Okay. Does any band come to your mind where kind of they took the same model?
I really don't think another band has went to the extent
of Kiss.
Yeah. I think they've been influential as far as posters and t-shirts and little things like Funko dolls and stuff, but not to the extent that Kiss has.
Agree, fully agree. But what do you think?
I always say that at first, like Rolla said, when other bands saw Kiss do the merchandising, especially in the 70s, other bands were making fun of them, saying, "Ha, ha, Kiss dolls and Kiss this and Kiss that. They suck their commercial and whatever." But as time progressed, times have changed, and now they made merchandising cool. They made merchandising something interesting from a business standpoint. And they realized that, hey, if the fans want it, we should be the ones providing it to them. So now you see Metallica action figures. You see King Diamond, from Merciful Fate, and of course the example you set, you showed past when you said Iron Maiden with the mascot. There's the potential there for all kinds of stuff, and proof being that there were multiple action figures on each theme. So yeah, again, Kiss has made merchandising something cool and also something lucrative, because let's not kid ourselves. That's their all the bands that we listen to, all the artists, that's their craft, and they rightfully are allowed to make money We all know that the music itself doesn't sell as much because of technologies and all that stuff, but they can make money otherwise. They built that brand, and it's their right. So Kiss proved over time that it was a smart aspect of a band of an artist's career, for sure.
Yeah, so true. It's and this is interesting because we're talking about merch, but we also talking about brand, which sometimes it goes to the extent of more than merchandising. When you see the name of the band, instantly you go and you kind of link that band with an item, with merch or with a record or music or something. And one of the bands that come to my mind, of course, as Pask said, and you too, Pat, Metallica, Maiden, but there's a band that comes from Korea, from South Korea. It's called BTS. It's a boys band, okay? Nothing to do with the type of music that we like. But these guys, they built an empire, which is unbelievable. So I'm not so much into the Asian market. I don't know a lot of stuff there, but I have a close friend whose daughter, she's a big fan of BTS. And in one of her vacations, she went all the way to South Korea just to experience being there. And she was telling us stories when she came back that they were all over the place, in big billboards, in the streets, there were stores full of stuff, not only, T-shirts and posters, but anything that you can imagine. And the Asian market being so big, and so extensive, of course, it's not rock and roll, but these guys, they developed their individual member personas, and they also have an army. So we're going to touch on this later, but their fan club, it's also called the BTS Army. So a big influence there too.
Nice. I mean, that's it, right? Their influence goes across the world.
Oh yeah,
around the world. It's incredible. All right. So from the Demon to the Star Child, each member of Kiss had a distinct persona. So which bands have borrowed the idea of alter egos or character-based egos, and how has it shaped their music and their image? Rella, start with you.
I'm going to say I have two, actually. To me, I think probably Slipknot should be on that list.
Mhm.
I think they have changed their mask. As their music grows, their mask get more intricate. And I think I read somewhere that they actually put on the mask to begin with to hide their faces so that the fan wouldn't see them as individuals, but they would see the music and hear the music and not pay attention to them. So, they definitely need to be on the list. The other person that should be, it's not necessarily a, band, but a person. And I'm going to say, Ozzy, because we all know he totally immersed in the Prince of Darkness. His music had a lot of light and dark, and he sang about a lot of the current events of the times. And I just really think that he needs to be on the list.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Claudio.
Yeah, it's I kind of what Rolla said is so true. I never thought about Ozzy, but now that it's so fresh, what happened with our dear Ozzy, it's true. So he created his own persona and completely irreplaceable. Nobody will be the Prince of Darkness anymore. Never
No.
ever. So you mentioned Slipknot, yes, of course. They have their masks, they're numbered and all the stuff. Another band that comes to my mind, it's Ghost, with this big inspiration on Kiss, Alice Cooper, this kind of iconography stuff, they put in their faces, and someone that if we go back in time. and this is interesting because, as you said before, Pask, so maybe Kiss took something that somebody else had done, and they kind of escalated, upgraded. But if we think about David Bowie, when he created Ziggy Stardust, so that was, or the White Duke, that's a character in itself. And then he changed over time, and he created so many versions of himself, the same person. And not to extend myself too long, the only one that I can think of, which has a strong, image and character, is Marilyn Manson. That's I remember the first time I saw this guy on some videos and listened to his music. So the image was kind of shocking, and I remember thinking of Gene. I don't know why. I instantly made the connection with Gene because of the impact, that's seeing that face there. But yeah, those are some of the names that comes to my mind.
Okay, good. Patrick?
Okay, I'm going to name a band that has nothing to do with hard rock or even soft rock or anything. It's a totally different niche. The Spice Girls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You have Scary Spice,
Yeah.
Baby Spice, you have a posh Spice, you have sporty, and you have Ginger was also sexy Spice. So they each had their persona. That to me was a little bit attractive, and it made me pay attention to what they were doing. I don't like or dislike their music. I think some of the stuff is interesting, and I see a Kiss. Were they influenced by Kiss? I doubt it, but it's funny that each girl has her own persona.
Yeah.
Because they have nicknames and that I just mentioned. So I can't help but wonder, was that influenced by Kiss? And I love the concept. They didn't copy Kiss. They just used an idea that applied to them, and it was cool. And proof is that when Ginger Spice left, the band changed, and they didn't last long very much after that because something was missing. And it changed the chemistry a little bit. But overall, I think I could see a Kiss influence right there. And their stage show, each girl has her own spot. And I think the persona thing really applies to the Spice Girls.
That's a good one.
You guys pretty much mentioned every band that I want to talk about. It's there's a lot of them out there, and I love the Spice Girls reference. I have another one for you. Lady Gaga.
There you go.
She's another one. Yeah,
yes,
she was on my list too.
Yeah, she's another one. Absolutely. And it's interesting because, when Kiss did it, they took characters that was a reflection of who they are. And I feel that a lot of celebrities today have a lot of issues, a lot of insecurities, and they take on these personas to overcome these insecurities and shine on stage. I saw the documentary for Lady Gaga. I think that's exactly what it was. She is a very insecure woman. Oh, yeah. A lot of issues. But man, when she's on stage on that runway, you couldn't tell because it's a character. And it's like wearing a Kiss makeup, like wearing a Halloween costume. You become a different person, and your true inner self is allowed to be expressed. Again, part of that suit, part of performing. That you have someone like Taylor Swift. There's no character there. This is who she is. There's no alter ego.
Right.
What you see is what you get. But with the Spice Girls, with Lady Gaga, take away that persona. I think for a lot of fans, it would fail because Lady Gaga, that is her personality on stage. People know her for that personality. They don't want to see the human being. They want to see the character. And it's interesting that music does that for people. It's therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I think whether Kiss started it or not, I think it's fantastic that anybody, whether you're extroverted or introverted, could go up on that stage and rock.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, Pas, because, as you were, putting Lady Gaga as an example, I was thinking of Paul, so when Paul was on stage, and I remember first time I saw, a huge front man, so secure, so, rocking out. And then with time, as we keep, we started reading books and, going a little bit deeper on his personality, we saw that he was kind of using that to kind of be someone else, on stage. And that's really interesting. I never thought that the guy was insecure or he had a lot of issues or he was kind of a loner sometimes. And but when he put that makeup on, man, so he completely became, the master of ceremony.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So us, the loyal fan base. So Kiss has built a loyal fan base through the Kiss Army and direct fan interaction. Started off, with the Kiss Army, the enrollment, and everything that was kind of a military standard. You become part of something and you're there forever. So what bands, guys, do you think have developed similar fan cults or communities? And in what ways has that mirrored the Kiss model? Patrick, start with you.
The first one that comes to mind is AC/DC, and I'll tell you why. I have this DVD, Live in River Plate.
Yeah, in Buenos Aires. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The show is great, no question there, but I think the documentary is even more interesting because you see the people's adoration for the band. It's just like, I'm not making fun. I know it comes from the heart and we are in the same place, but you have a Japanese fan who says, I come here for the AC/DC show. I mean, that's dedication right there.
Yeah.
You also have this guy from Buenos Aires, I believe, with his accent say, AC/DC is my religion. So, and again, I'm not mocking them. It's just like, it's so pure and it comes from the heart. There's another one from the same documentary, a father and his get emotional when I think about it, and his 12-year-old child at the time. They said, we try to get tickets, but he says, I lost my job, something like that. And the guy from the radio station said, oh, we tried to get you tickets, and unfortunately we weren't able to make it. And he goes, no, we're fooling you. You got each one a ticket and you're going to the concert. The father and the child are crying like babies because they're so happy. So my point was that I think each band has its cult following somewhere in the world. Whether it's Judas Priest, Maiden fans are over the top. Those are the ones that come to mind. And also Metallica. I mean, Metallica, here's a pattern. They release an album, people say it's bad, or I was going to use other words, but they're packing stadiums.
Yeah.
So again, I think that's the fan base. So I think each band has its fan base, and I think we need to look into documentaries on the other bands to see that they're just like us. I mean, they have their casual fans, but you have like a section who are hardcores like us, I think.
Okay. Pasc, what's your take on this one?
I love this question because I have a psychology degree, and you can do a thesis on this particular question, because I'm going to absolutely argue that this has absolutely nothing to do with Kiss. It has to do with human nature. We need to feel like we are part of a group, a part of a community, and then we label that community. You have these diehard Star Wars fans, Star Trek fans. Right. You can't credit that to Kiss. This is people have a passion for something, right, and they immerse themselves in that experience, and then label themselves as Trekkies, for example. And it's no different in music. Again, has nothing to do with Kiss. You got the Grateful Dead, the Deadheads, Taylor Swift, the Swifties.
Yeah.
Yes, I have it in my notes too. BTS, the Army. I heard about them as well, Claudio. You know, but again, it has nothing to do with Kiss. These are people that have a love for their music, their band, their movie, and they feel like they're part of a community, and they label themselves as part of the community. Religion is no different. Say what you want, but it creates an amazing sense of community, of
Of
oneness,
belonging. Yeah.
of togetherness, of one. Yes, absolutely. And music is one of the many ways that brings people together like that. And Kiss, like every other band, every other love for movies, does the same thing.
Good.
But it comes from the fans. This stuff doesn't come from fans, from bands. It comes from the fans. The fans label themselves the Swifties, the Kiss Army.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, the best example, what Rolla said at the beginning. So nothing to do with the band. These guys are getting together for a cruise, and just because it's the fans, who make things real, Rolla, on to you.
You know what, I was gonna name a few bands, but when Patrick, and I had in my mind to say exactly what Pat said. I mean, it's almost like, what is it? Birds of a feather flock together. I mean, we look at community with each other, and because we all have something in common that we can talk about, and how we grew up, and the music that we listen to, or the movies that we love. Just like he said, with horror movies, certain movies all have cult followings, and bands have the same thing. So I think it's human nature, just like Pat said. It's more human nature than a certain fandom of a band.
Yeah. Well, I fully agree. So I think the four of us agree that even though Kiss were instrumental and so influential in many aspects, I think in this one, maybe we tend to believe, us, the Kiss fans, that we're different from other fans. I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure. So maybe it's just a way to reinforce, our fandom, to think that maybe we're a little bit more freak or crazy than the others, but it's everywhere. I remember, Pat, so you mentioned the AC/DC documentary. If you see the one from Maiden, Flight 666.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same, right? So when they go to Costa Rica, they go to India, and, people go nuts. They travel miles and miles just to see the band, and it's unbelievable. Yeah. So, I have nothing more to say. And, you guys, basically, you said it all. The only thing that I can mention for bands that are well known for their following, it's once again Slipknot. They call themselves the Maggots, and even Beyonce, which has nothing to do with the type of music that we love, but they have something that is called the Beehive. So they are organized. They protective of the artist. They're loyal to her. So it's really interesting. But it all comes to what Pas said at the beginning. It's all about psychology and trying to find something that make us, happy and share with other friends, with other people.
All right. So the final question, I think, is a bit of a doozy, right? Because Kiss blended hard rock with pop hooks, making their music accessible to a wide-ranging audience.
Yeah.
Was that influence, or is that by design? So what bands have followed this approach, straddling genres to reach mainstream success while maintaining that rock edge? Claudio.
I think in this one, that Kiss was, they were masters of the way how they merged, hard rock's energy with pop's, catchiness. I don't know if they created that. I don't think so, but they mastered, the stuff. So we all agree that their choruses were anthemic, the riffs were punchy, and their image, was larger than life. I have to say that from the 80s, I can maybe name a few bands that I think they took what Kiss did in this kind of merge of music to make them successful. Bon Jovi comes to mind, Def Leppard. I think they took that recipe, hard rocking, but catchy, a little bit poppy sometimes, a very, young audience driven. Van Halen too. To me, those bands, they have the perfect mix of hard rock and pop. Some of the albums, of course, sometimes they're rougher than others, but more rocky. But it's in their DNA. So these guys, they know how to do that stuff.
Claudio, do you think that someone like Bon Jovi was influenced by Kiss?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. I think they took some of the stuff that Kiss did, and of course they took another route. But I think it was a big influence for them. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Rella?
I'm going to change this question up a little bit. Ozzy, I'm going to bring him up again. He, even though he stayed true to his genre, I think because he was able to use current events in his lyrics, and, he sang about a lot of things that were going on in the world, and he always did. I think because he was able to do that, and because he had a lot of collaborations with a lot of different artists, that kept him out there longer, if that makes any kind of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know, and I think he did a British TV show. He had music in a British TV show, a cartoon. But the fact that he was able to collaborate with so many different artists. I think Ringo Starr was one, Kim Basinger. I know he did some stuff with Alice Cooper, Motorhead. I mean, he always had his true genre, but he was able to adapt and do other things with other artists. And I think that helped him to adapt, maybe.
Okay, yeah. Was he adapting, or was he keeping up with current?
Or was he maybe trying to keep up with current events?
Yeah, exactly.
The sign of the times, and I think the whole his lyrics always kept up with it. His lyrics always kept up with the time. There was always a little something political in there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to touch on that later, but I always found that Ozzy's music was honest.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It almost sounds to me like he's saying, if you don't listen to me, this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we can change things if we want to.
Yeah.
Okay, Patrick, what do you think?
I think as far as the poppy yet hard rock edge, the thing that comes to my mind is the hair bands rather, that we had in the 80s, such as Poison, Motley Crue again, all those people. They had a hard rock edge, but yet they did have these poppier kind of songs that you could hum. And proof being, some of their music could be heard on more commercial radio stations. Wouldn't be rare to hear a Cinderella song on a lighter radio station instead of the hard rock one. So, and yet they could be on both. So yeah, they were hard rock bands with a poppy edge. So I think those bands took it further, because Kiss was never really a radio-friendly band, aside from maybe I Was Made for Loving You and Beth, Rock and Roll Night. But those bands, they took the idea and pushed it a bit further. Now it got to a point where it was too much, but for a while it did. That's what ruled. You would watch the Power Hour, and yes, you would get your Maiden, your Metallica, but you'd also see some Cinderella and some Poison, Loudness, and all those bands. So I think, in a way, they kind of maybe influenced those bands to be approachable, yet still stay true to who you are.
Good point. I think Kiss influenced bands in many ways, theatrics. Bands got into music because of Kiss. But were Kiss influential directly because of their music? And I'm gonna say no. I'm going to say no. I think like the first few albums, that was the classic Kiss sound. And speaking of Ozzy, that was honest. But Kiss music, in my opinion, never actually evolved. Not because they didn't have the talent, but because they kept the music to the brand. And there was always, yes, it was always about empowerment and you know, doing what you want and go for your dreams. Yeah, I love the message. But that was their brand. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That was their brand. Like Ozzy, he changed with the times. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say it. People are gonna hate me. Live to Win. I like that album more than most Kiss albums.
I like it too.
Right? Because it's honest, because it's current. So it talks about what Paul has been going through at the present time. A lot of those songs are about his divorce. Mm-hmm. That album showed maturity and growth. And you know, you go into something like Sonic Boom. Where's the maturity and growth there? Great album. I loved it. But there's no maturity, there's no growth. It was trying to go back to classic Kiss, the same themes, the same types of lyrics, you know. No actual growth. So no, I don't think that they influenced bands through their music directly. It was the whole concept of Kiss, that whole fantasy to be a rock star that influenced people to get into music, to create their band. But I don't think it was directly because of their music. Kiss has always been more about the visuals, in my opinion, than their music.
All right. Well, that's great. So a great way to wrap it up. Once again, Pat, Rolla, it's a pleasure to have you. It's nice to see you. You know, happy that you guys are doing well, enjoying the summer. And, you know, we can't wait for the next one. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Always fun.
Enjoyed it, always.
Thank you very much, guys. And just notice that I often say my controversial things at the end, because I wonder how many people actually watch the show to the end. Because some of the things I've said on the show, man, I'm surprised I don't get any hate mail from it.
You should put that question first, you know.
Yeah, right. No way.
See what happens.
No way. I like Live to Win more than most Kiss records. Oh boy. What kind of fan is this guy? But anyway, guys, again, like Claudio said, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're doing these discussion panels more and more now, and it's fantastic that you guys are always so willing to come on, excited to come on, and it really shows with the content of these episodes, and that's thanks to you guys. So again, thank you so much.
Well, it goes back to the thing we were talking about, the fandom. I mean, we're all fans, and we like to get together and talk about it.
Yeah, true. Absolutely.
True. So true.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Kiss Army, we want to hear from you. What do you think about this particular topic? So we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please send it to talktome@kissarmynationpodcast.com. Until the next time, remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone.